Wow.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Gifted World Masterclass. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I'm doing fanciness with this. Okay. So Gifted World is an online platform, a community to help students, parents, and teachers realize their full potential. Our goal is to be a place that enables you to be curious, enables you to be challenged, and find a community while doing that. We've been around since January this year. It's a real pleasure today to be hosting Ashish Kulkarni, whose masterclass started off this platform in January. Uh, we started off just with these free masterclasses and a few blogs, and over time, our offerings have grown. We have challenges that we put up every fortnight or so, where you can try and answer these questions. The last challenge involved how do you use only a roughly cut piece of paper, a pencil, and a mug to find the center of this circle. Then we've also been having other challenges. The one before that involved trying to confuse AI models. We've been founded by a bunch of three different organizations that have a lot of experience in this space. We're very excited about what we're able to do. So we've got a couple of exciting things coming up. There are residential summer programs happening. One in the start of July in the Manipal campus of Manipal Academy of Higher Education. So that is in Karnataka, an in-person summer camp. If you like what's happening here, that's like this on steroids happening for like 2 or 3 weeks, 24 hours a day. And then we're excited to also be hosting a summer program for students from the Middle East and Africa at the IIT Madras Zanzibar campus at the end of July. And finally, we've got some exciting online courses that are coming up in August and September, including two being taught by Ashish, today's speaker. The topics range, and these courses are each 4 weeks long, where you'll have an assignment to do during the week and an online session every Saturday with the mentor, along with support from teaching assistants through it to help you really challenge yourself and figure out new things. Our topics range from generative AI to algebra to data exploring and visualization, storytelling, financial literacy, statistics, etc. And the classes are in junior and senior. So whether you're in grade 4 to grade 10, you can find something that fits for you. So do take a look at online courses on Gifted World and see if you'd be interested. With that, I'd like to jump to today's event, which is titled This Entangled Summer. Okay. So Ashish Kulkarni is an economist and an amazing teacher who's really a lot of fun. And I used to think that economists were these dry, boring people, and if you have to study economy, you have to start with like some theory that's 500 years old, and then move to the 400-year-old theory, and then move to the 300-year-old theory. But in fact, the way Ashish teaches it starts from right here, right now, and it's connected to absolutely everything. So I've really enjoyed learning and working alongside him, and I'm sure you all will as well. So with that, I'd like to hand over the stage to Ashish and request everyone to enjoy today, but also let's just be polite and respectful and not speak over others and wait our turn. Thank you so much. Over to Ashish.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that very kind introduction, Siddharth. And you're right. Uh, Both the transformation in terms of what has been achieved since January onwards over here has been stunning to watch. And I hope at least some of you choose to end up coming for some of the summer camps, either now or next year. In fact, today's talk, let me just share my screen and I can get started. Today's talk, in a sense, is helping you guys understand what goes on at the camp. The presentation that I'm going to be using today was delivered at the past summer camp, the one that got concluded in May of 2024. And actually, I haven't changed a single thing in this entire presentation except for two sentences. And you'll find out what those two sentences are as we go along. But the rest of it is exactly the same. And you'll find out what the topic of the talk is. You'll find out why I'm teaching you or rather talking to you about this particular presentation in today's class as we go along. But the idea is to show that this summer at the camp was a very, very entangled summer. But before I begin with the entangled summer and why I refer to it as the entangled summer, here's a fun question for you guys. And there are a lot of fun questions for you guys in today's talk. The two people that you can see over here, Krishan, I'll take your response in just a couple of seconds.
This
Don't
is
worry.
you. Yeah, this is you on the day of the evening, Adda, where you talked about like World Towel Day, and this is DJ Shetty with you.
Absolutely, that's quite right. So, in fact, that was going to be my question in today's talk. Does anybody know why we have towels over here? And as Krishana quite correctly pointed out, two things that she pointed out. First, this is me, as you can tell, on the left-hand side of your screens. And on the right-hand side of the screens is a person whose name is Eklavya, but anybody who's been to the summer camp will know him as DJ Shetty. And the reason both of us have towels with us is because the day on which I gave that talk was International Towel Day. Now, some of you might be wondering what is International Towel Day and why have a day dedicated to towels in the first place. In order to get the answer to that question, you really should be reading a book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, written by my all-time favorite science fiction author. His name was Douglas Adams. I'm sad to report that he passed away about 4 years ago. But the guy was a genius. And if you can spare the time, please do read a book called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It is well worth your time. And the reason I didn't remove this particular screen was because I found it a wonderful coincidence that the day on which I was giving this talk in May was the day on which International Towel Day happened to be there. And second, because any chance that I get to get more people be aware of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I'm always going to take up that chance. More people really should read that particular book. But all right, let's get started with the theme of today's talk. And here's a fun question for you guys to try and answer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 5 photographs on the screen. And what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to identify both of the things that are common to these 5 people. Okay? I'll make it slightly easier for you. As I show you the photographs, I'll also name the people. Feel free to look up information online. If you think that will help, please go ahead. Right? So the first photograph that will come up on your screen is a guy called John Nash. Now, those of you who have attended May's summer camp, obviously not allowed to answer this question because you know what the answer is. Only if you've not attended May's summer camp will you get to answer these questions. So, the first person is a gentleman called John Nash. Some of you may have seen or heard of a movie called A Beautiful Mind. John Nash was in it. The second photograph is of a gentleman called Herbert Simon, Herbertsimon. The third photograph is a gentleman called Ronald Coase, Coase. The fourth photograph is a person called Daniel Kahneman. I'm sad to report that he passed away earlier on this year. Wonderful, wonderful person, great researcher, will be sorely missed. And finally, perhaps my favorite person out of all of these 5, although that's a close call given how awesome everybody's work has been. But this last person, her name was Elinor Ostrom, Elinor Ostrom, Ostrom. Now, my question for you guys is, there are 2 things that are common to these people. I need you to identify both things. And I know Krishana and I think there was somebody else who are dying to answer this question. So Krishana, don't worry. If nobody else is able to answer, then I'll come to you for sure. And Keshav, were you there at the summer camp? I think you were, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then Keshav, no, I'm sorry, you'll have to wait. But if Krishana doesn't know the answer, then we'll come to you. I already have an answer in the chat window. that all of them are old.
All of them
That
are
in
old and economists.
Yes, you're right. All of them are old and well, I'm not
Economists.
so sure about whether they're economists or not, but we'll get to that. Dia
Yeah,
says all of them look rich to me.
that's
You're right,
correct.
all of them were rich.
So that's it. Two things common: old and rich.
Yeah, Ishan, that answer has already been given, but no, all of them are not economists. Ambassadors. I'm not sure if any of the five ever ended up becoming ambassadors, but Chan, you're on the right track. And in fact, the second answer, I'll go ahead and tell you, is that all of them are not economists. So John Nash was a mathematician, Eleanor Ostrom and Herbert Simon were political scientists, Daniel Kahneman was a psychologist, and Ronald Coase was a lawyer. So in fact, none of them are economists. But the other thing that is common to them is all of them, all five of them. I love the guesses that you guys are coming up with. Yes, all of their job do end in STS or ISTS.
I,
But
Ashish, we should let Krishana or Keshav give the second answer.
yes, Krishana, you've been waiting for a long time. Please go ahead and give the second answer.
All of them are not economists. They're
Yes,
all different things, like you just said, but all of them won the Nobel Prize for Economy.
fantastic, absolutely. And that's the weird bit. All five of them have won the Nobel Prize, but all five of them have won the Nobel Prize in economics, and none of them were economists to begin with. And that is why I always tell my students whenever I teach in a college that us economists, we are really hopeless. So we've ended up giving at least five, and there are more, but we've ended up giving at least five Nobel Prizes in our field. I'm an economist by training, to people who are not even economists. And in that sense, like I said, us economists, we are completely hopeless. But as it turns out, we economists, we don't just borrow people, regardless of whether they've won the Nobel Prize in economics or not. We don't just borrow people from other fields. We're also quite shameless at borrowing ideas. I'll give you one of many possible examples. So we have this theory in economics, okay? I'm going to tell you this theory, and I want you guys to tell me if you can understand what this theory reminds you of. So this theory in economics says that if there are two countries, the larger these two countries are, the more they will trade with each other. And the closer these two countries are to each other, the more they will trade with each other. So we say trade is a function of the size of the country, and the trade is a function of the proximity or how close these countries are to each other. Uh, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Bharatram, right? And my apologies if I'm not. But yes, you're right. It is physics, and within physics, specifically, it is the gravity model. So, as economists, we have shamelessly copied from physics as well. We've copied an idea called the gravity model, and we have christened the gravity model of international trade, which simply says the larger two countries are, the more likely they are to trade with each other, and the closer these two countries are, the more likely it is that they will trade with each other. So as you can see, we don't just borrow people, we also borrow ideas from other fields. And we borrowed these ideas from the fields of artificial intelligence, from physics, as we just discussed, from neuroscience, from forensics, from mathematics, believe it or not, from something known as Goldberg machines. And don't worry if you don't know what Goldberg machines are, I will talk about this later on in today's talk. From aviation or the science of designing planes, and from engineering design. Now, you might wonder what a weird list to put up over here. Why not mention biology, for example, or why not mention other fields of study? Why specifically these fields? Well, the reason I specifically mentioned these fields, and because I asked Krishana to answer, I think it was Keshav, right? Keshav, can you help everybody else understand why I've mentioned all of these fields?
I think it's because these are the fields that are there in. I mean that was there in the summer program, if I'm correct.
Absolutely. Correct. Quite right. So each of these subjects were taught at the summer camp that got over in May. And when I gave this talk, what I wanted to do was and this is why I would argue that this talk is important for you guys and everybody else on this planet. I wanted to convey the idea to the students, and I want to convey the same idea to each and every one of you. When you're studying a subject, you're actually choosing to study everything. So there is no such thing as a bad subject. There is no such thing as a boring subject. There is no such thing as a subject that you dislike. Because even if you dislike the subject whose textbook you happen to be looking at right now, you're only limited by your imagination. It is your job to find out how to link this boring, deadly boring, horribly dull subject to the subject that you really like to study. And trust me, you'll find out by the end of today's talk that it is always possible to link any subject to any other subject. And when you learn how to play this game, when you learn how to draw connections between what you're studying and what you like, then by definition, studying can never ever again be boring. So the purpose of this talk, the motivation of this talk, the idea behind this talk is to help you guys understand how to have fun while you're learning anything. Say, for example, you dislike learning a language. Try and figure out how words from that language came from the English language. And I'm guaranteeing you that there'll be some words in that language that came from English. I'm guaranteeing you that there'll be some words from that language that have been stolen by English. But if you spend half your time in trying to figure out, well, all right, where does this word come from? Subject of analysis known as etymology, then suddenly even the most boring language in the world to you becomes an interesting language to learn. And that's just one example. There are so many other examples where you learn how to connect different things to different things. And when you get better at connecting different things to different things, then you get much, much better at learning. So, what we are going to do in today's talk is you guys are going to answer, with the benefit of the internet, these two questions: who, what, or both. Now, what do I mean when I say who, what, or both? What I mean is you will have to identify for me from each slide here on in either an idea, that is the what, or a person, that is the who, that was borrowed from one of the subjects that is being taught at this camp. So I will tell you about an interesting problem. I will tell you about an interesting story. And when you listen to that story, you have to identify who or what was borrowed from which subject and by which subject, which means you must guess the subject from which this idea or this person was borrowed. And you must also try and figure out the subject that did the borrowing. So maybe economics stole from AI, maybe forensics stole from aviation, maybe bicycle engineering stole from neuroscience. So you have to identify who has been the thief and who has been the victim in each of the stories that I come up with from here on in. Now, when we played this,
Um,
yes,
I,
Jagat. So here's one way to help you understand this. You remember how I spoke about the fact that, let me go back. Now, this person over here, his name was Daniel Kahneman, right? He was a psychologist and he spent many years working in a field called behavioral economics. Behavioral economics is simply the study of economics, but by asking questions related to psychology. So in this case, economics is actually stolen from a concept called psychology, or has stolen lots of concepts from a field called psychology. Similarly, the lady over here on this slide, her name was Eleanor Ostrom, and she was a political scientist. So in that case, we economists, we stole from the field of political science. In the case of John Nash, we economists, we stole from the field of mathematics.
Okay, sir.
Right. So what we have to do is we have to try and figure out how a particular subject stole an idea from another subject. And Jagat, thank you for bringing up your question, because when I use the word steal or when I use the word victim, I don't necessarily mean anything bad happened. Right. So usually we associate the word thievery or the word stealing or the word victim with something rather bad. But that is not at all the point over here. The point is to understand that subjects always and all the time steal something from other subjects, and that actually makes both subjects better off. To help everybody, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down all the subjects that I'm going to refer to in the chat window. Knowing my memory, I've probably missed at least one, but I'll risk it. Let me just quickly check. Engineering design, yes. I think everything else has been mentioned, right? Yeah. Right, so in the chat window, I've listed all of the subjects that we will be referring to over here. And even better, if you're able to draw connections between a story that you see on the screen and something that is not mentioned in the list that I've just shared with you, that'll be even more awesome. So don't worry about right or wrong answers. There is no such thing as a right or wrong answer. You will always, even if your guess is wrong, you'll always find out unexpected connections between two different subjects. So the good news with today's talk is there is no such thing as a right answer and a wrong answer. But in the talk, there definitely were right answers and wrong answers.
Oops, I think Ashish's connection froze. Just a moment. Okay, while Ashish is stuck, I will just ask everyone to quickly answer this quick poll while he joins us again. Could I ask you to fill in your age, where you're joining this call from, and your email ID? That will help us get in touch with you after the session for any follow-ups. Knowing your age helps us plan things out.
Sir, which email ID? Sir, I don't know. Email ID name.
No, your email address, so that if we wanted to send you if there's anything that Ashish wanted to send you after the session, we will send it to everyone who has filled in their email ID here.
Okay, sir.
Great. And while you're filling it in, I will just tell you, I'm going to guess what Ashish was going to say, that when he did do this session back in May at the in-person summer camp, there were right and wrong answers. So he was trying, as an economist, trying to incentivize people to make good answers. But also, if you gave a wrong answer, there was then a photo taken of you pulling your hair. So we were trying to incentivize right answers. You got a chocolate if you gave the right answer. If you gave the wrong answer, you had to pull your hair and get that caught on camera, so that there wouldn't be people just raising their hands and giving random answers. Now, I don't know what economist Ashish has planned for today's session, if at all.
No, unfortunately, and thank you for filling in, Siddharth. I'm sorry, the internet connection is a little problematic at my place today.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you all for filling out the poll of your ages and email ID. I will close it off now so that we can continue with the session.
Lovely. So yes, unfortunately, it's not possible to do this on an online call, but hopefully,
sorry about that. Done.
No problem. One day we can meet in person and perhaps do a repeat or a variant of this talk. And the other thing is, again, I have not changed anything except added a one sentence over here. Depending on where you are in the world and listening to this talk, we will stop at roughly 5:30 p.m. India time, or roughly speaking 1 hour from now. Yeah. All that being done, let's get started. So here's the first puzzle or problem for you guys. Please take a look at what you see on your screen, and in the chat window, try and guess what has been stolen and from which subject. And Shan, yes, neuroeconomics very much is an example of connecting two different subjects.
And is it from engineering design? Engineering design?
Something has been stolen from engineering design? No.
Physics?
I mean, I can understand why
Economy.
you're saying this.
Economy.
Yep, absolutely, yes.
It's written
Economics,
government income and all. Time and
economics was a thief, yes.
science. No, that's not.
Keshav definitely knows the answer, but again, Keshav will wait. And Krishana also knows the answer, of
Time.
course. No? Economics stole from physics is Sahana's answer, and that comes closest actually. But believe it or not, economics actually stole from a Goldberg machine. Yep, absolutely. As Dia quite correctly pointed out, economics stole from Rube Goldberg machines. So here's the story. Back in 1958, there was this economist in New Zealand, of all places, called A.W. Phillips. And A.W. Phillips created a working model of the economy using a simple machine made using water and gravity. Let's take a look at that machine and understand how a Goldberg machine can be made using principles of economics. Now, I really hope that the audio comes through. My apologies in advance if it does not.
The audio is coming fine.
The reason I find it amazing is, well, as a teacher, I find this amazing because imagine teaching economics by building a machine. That is so much better than drawing boring diagrams on a blackboard. All the adults who are on this call have been tortured, I can guarantee it, have been tortured by their econ professors, and their econ professors have drawn really boring diagrams on boards to explain stuff. But imagine instead building a machine in order to understand what an economic system might look like. That's one reason why I enjoy this so much. And the second reason I enjoy looking at this so much is thinking about how somebody way back when in 1958 had the imagination to make something like this, which is truly remarkable. As Shan has just explained to everybody, for those of you who are wondering what a Goldberg machine is, a Goldberg machine is simply a machine that is complicated for no good reason. If you've ever seen a Tom and Jerry video where Tom creates a really elaborate machine that will eventually whack Jerry, that's a Goldberg machine. And Goldberg machines don't exist in order to make something truly useful. They exist mostly for entertainment purposes. Rube Goldberg was the name of the person who came up with this machine. And if you're wondering, is there a better example of what a Goldberg machine might do? Here is another video that might help you understand what a Goldberg machine is and what it has to do with economics.
Ashish, could you just make it full screen?
Yes, Siddharth?
Could you just make it full screen? That would be easier for the people who are on mobiles. I think if you've
I
done it, maybe.
will try, I'm not sure. I don't know how to
Okay.
make this.
No,
Oh,
then
what?
no issues. Just you can just play. Otherwise, it will mess up the presentation.
Yeah.
Thanks. Oh, Ashish, actually, the audio is not coming through. You might just have to reshare, start the screen share again while sharing your audio. Sorry.
Sorry, you're saying I should share my screen
Yeah, you
again?
need to undo the screen share, and then when you click share, there's a little a tick box saying share sound.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Ah, yes. Good.
Then maybe we should just start the video from the beginning.
Yep, yep. All right, my apologies, folks. And third time's a charm, so hopefully now it'll work.
Yes. Yes.
When the Fed wants to fight inflation, it raises interest rates, which sets off a chain reaction in the economy. We built this machine to show you how it works. It all starts when the Fed makes money more expensive for big banks and hedge funds, and that pushes up short-term and long-term rates. Now, more people want the dollar, making it stronger and stronger. And more people want bonds, so stock prices fall. So while you might earn more with your savings account, you'll pay more on your credit cards and loans. This might make you buy less, which means businesses could sell less, hire fewer workers, and put things on sale, all slowing the economy. And if everything goes as expected, inflation will fall. But it's a delicate system, and there are a lot of places where the machine could fail. So, like many of us, the Fed will be watching the economy to see what happens next.
Again, the reason I like this particular video so much is if you listen carefully to the last part of the video, they actually speak about how there are a lot of things that can go wrong. Now, you might think that they're talking about how a lot of things can go wrong in a Goldberg machine. And of course, you're right. Anybody who's tried to build a Goldberg machine will know how complicated it is to build. And I can see Keshav raising his hand. And some of you might want to talk to Keshav later to understand how insanely difficult it is to get even a simple Goldberg machine to work. But the point is that trying to build a model of the economy in the real world, which means if you lower interest rates, will banks actually do what we hope they will do? And will businesses get the money that they were supposed to get? And then will what we wanted to happen actually happen? Is in fact even more complicated than building a Goldberg machine. And so the point of this video is, if you think building a Goldberg machine is complicated, wait until you become an economist and you try to change interest rates in the economy. That is 10 times as complicated. Dia has just mentioned that she's tried to build a Goldberg machine once. The other thing that you might want to do is, if you're learning something in physics, for example, see if you can build a Goldberg machine that teaches the same thing. Say, for example, you're trying to learn how to work with friction. You might be learning how to work with gravity. Can you build a simple Goldberg machine that shows both of these ideas in practice? It might take you the better part of a day to build a machine like this, but that is so much more fun than trying to measure or memorize the formula for friction or gravity, right? So the point is, no matter what you're learning, try and see if you can build Goldberg machines that help you understand this idea. And that was the point of showing you how economics can also end up stealing from Goldberg machines. Did somebody have a question?
Yes, sir. Sir, I didn't understand the Goldberg machines.
So Goldberg machines, Jagat, I'm sorry, yeah, Goldberg machines are machines. I think somebody was humming, which is why I ended up pausing. Goldberg machines, Jagat, are machines that actually don't do anything. And that sounds really weird, right? How can a machine not do anything? But the point is that you build a Goldberg machine simply to have fun. That is it. So,
Okay.
two recommendations I'll do. One, watch a Honda Civic Goldberg machine ad. It'll be easily available on YouTube. Okay. And second, watch a movie called Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So in the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the inventor builds a complicated machine whose job it is to cook breakfast. All that the machine does is it boils eggs and makes toast. But it does it in a really complicated way. So Goldberg machine exists simply to have fun in order to build a machine. That is it. That's its only job.
Oh,
It is not built to reduce somebody's effort. It is not built in order to do something. It is built in order to have fun. Look it up. Goldberg machines are amazing machines, very entertaining, but they don't actually do anything. And then I can see Krishna is dying to explain something else about Goldberg machines. Yes, Krishna, please go ahead.
So Goldberg machines are very complicated to do one thing. For example, if you want to switch on a switch, then you won't just simply go and do it. You'll have to first make a marble and run it down a ramp, make other stuff like dominoes fall, and everything will lead just to making the switch fall. And it'll take about 3 hours to build and 3 minutes to do to run it. And everything could go wrong. So it's not easy, but it's just there for fun, and it's really interesting to build one.
Yep, absolutely. So Jagat, in fact, if you like, after this call is over, look up what a Goldberg machine is and see if you can build a very simple Goldberg machine at home. But be warned, as Krishna pointed out, it takes 3 hours minimum to build it, and it works for less than 3 minutes. So it'll take a lot of effort, but it is a whole lot of fun to do. I see somebody else raise their hand. I'm not sure who though. Keshav. Yes, Keshav.
Sir, I just wanted to share a fact about the Rube Goldberg machine. On the last day when we were going to present it to the parents, I basically remember us being so tense, and just before it worked so well, and on the first attempt, the marble got stuck and the entire thing fell down.
Yeah, the whole thing got crashed, and then we ran it again in our group, and then we had to then rebuild it. So then we had to make all the parents wait for at least 10-20 minutes to put it back together.
I
It
know.
just fell.
Yeah. So not just Jagat, but everybody else on this call, the getting it right is really tricky. So if you saw the video that the New York Times had made, any one of those things not working out means that the whole thing would not have worked. So those little marbles had to roll down just right, and then they had to roll at just enough speed so as to be able to fall into the bucket that had been kept below. A little slower, it would not have rolled. A little bit too fast, it would have gone past the bucket. So a million different things have to work perfectly for the whole Goldberg machine to work. And that's the point. Like I said, the point is to have fun with it. All right. Now,
it's just to get fun while making the machine.
yep, exactly. The point is to have fun while building something that looks cool once it's done. That's the idea. But if that sounds weird, go ahead and try and building one yourself. It's an unbelievable amount of fun. All right, next. Please take a look, and this is going to be a test of your grammar skills. So I'm going to read all the 4 sentences that you see on your screen, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So imagine that there is a gym somewhere, right? A gymnasium, an exercise hall, which is full of enthusiastic people. And because Joan is taking a look at all of these people who are actively exercising, she says, it looks like many people are taking their fitness seriously. Now, the gym instructor can listen to what Joan has said, and the gym instructor can either say they will be thankful when they get fitter, or the instructor can say they will be sorry when they get fatter. And the reason he will say this is because he had a firm belief that exercise is very important. If you've understood what is on the screen, I want you to try and figure out whether the instructor will say they will be thankful when they get fitter, or whether the instructor will say they will be sorry when they get fatter. Shan has correctly identified this. Thankful when they get fitter. Quite right. So over here, the point, not just for Shan, but for everybody else, the point is all of us are able to understand that the word they in this case refers to people who are in the exercise hall already. We know this. How do we know this? We know this because the first sentence over here says non-ironic, so nobody is being sarcastic, right? And because we know they are not being ironic, we know that the word they in this case is referring to when they get fitter. That is, it is referring to people who are already in the exercise hall. Don't worry if this is a little confusing right now, it will become a little clearer when you see this. Mostly the same slide, but now non-ironic has changed to ironic. Now in this case, the hall was pretty empty. And as Dia has quite correctly identified, in this case, the correct answer is they will be sorry when they get fatter. How
Sir,
did Dia understand this? Yes, Jagat.
sir, because sir, they tell that because it's empty, so there's no person inside. So
Absolutely.
they meaning the people outside,
Correct.
people who are not there inside the hall. It's already mentioned that.
Correct. So what is fascinating is all of us are able to understand that the same word they actually refers to two different categories of people. In
Yeah.
one case, the word they refers to people who are in the hall, and in the other case, the word they refers to people who are not in the hall. And we just know, obviously, what the correct answer is. What about this? Now it is non-ironic, not many. So you'll see that Joan's sentence has changed to, it looks like not many people are taking their fitness seriously.
Sir, sorry when they get fatter or something. Sorry when they'll get fatter.
Correct. So once again, when we say non-ironic, but in this case we say not many, as Jagat quite correctly pointed out, in this case it is people who are not there in the gym, and they are going to be sorry when they get fatter. What about ironic, not many?
Sir,
Yeah. So Meera has correctly identified for the previous one, I'm guessing, that Joan's statement can only make sense ironically if he is being sarcastic.
yes, sir.
Right? So the point is that we are all able to understand when people are being sarcastic and when people are not being sarcastic. And that's a skill that we're able to pick up. Some of you might have seen the lovely movie Inside Out 2 recently, and you learn about how our brains develop the ability to both be sarcastic and understand sarcasm. Right? So this is, I get a thumbs up from Krishana, and I'm sure some other people who also have seen the movie and will remember sarcasm and how it starts to develop in young people's brains. But here's a weird question for you guys now. And I'm sorry, Keshav and Krishana, you're not allowed to answer because you've already seen this. But for everybody else, can you please tell me who was a thief and who was a victim? Which of the subjects that were taught at this year's summer camp stole, and from which subject? Any guesses?
So the it was like the examples you showed, the three examples.
Hmm.
I didn't understand like what you meant.
No worries. So let's take a look at just the first one. This is to clarify for everybody, but in the meantime, please feel free to use the chat window and give me your guesses about who the thief is and who the victim is. But in this case, let me try and explain what is going on over here. Imagine that there is an exercise hall that is full of very enthusiastic people who are all exercising. So Joan, who is the fitness instructor's assistant, she says, it looks like many people are taking their fitness seriously. So she's saying, well, many people are coming to the gym to exercise. Now, what should the instructor say? Should the instructor say they will be thankful when they get fitter, or should the instructor say they will be sorry when they get fatter?
So the first one.
Exactly. So the point is that you understood that the correct answer over here is thankful when they get fitter, not sorry when they get fatter. So who is the they? The they in this case is referring to people who are already in the hall. And the point is that we are able to understand this, the context of the word they, by reading what is on the slide. All right. And now a lot of people have gotten one part of the answer correct. Yes, neuroeconomics or psychology, I'm using, they're not really the same thing, but I'm using them interchangeably right now. But neuroscience is one of the, either the thief or the victim. But who stole from, or what did neuroscience steal from?
Stole from grammar.
Nope. Meera, yes, you're right. The psychological part or the neuroscience part is that somehow we can tell when somebody is being serious and when somebody is being sarcastic. So I'm glad that none of you got the answer. The correct answer is that
Artificial intelligence. Artificial
yes,
intelligence.
artificial intelligence.
Well, I
Yes,
was also
Krishna.
thinking of that.
Excellent. So here's the weird part. Now, when I asked ChatGPT this, ChatGPT got it wrong. ChatGPT said deliberately it gave a wrong answer. And so I went ahead and asked ChatGPT, what made you choose a wrong answer? And here is ChatGPT's answer.
Oh,
So it's been trained, okay? It's been trained to always be polite.
Sir,
A
if I
large,
could
a
ask you a
large language
question.
model or an AI is trained to always say, please go and exercise. Please go and be as fit as possible. So it's a weird reason we teach our AIs to not understand or not be sarcastic themselves. In fact,
Sir,
some of you can guess the reason why this is important. Yes, Keshav.
I'm I'm still laughing at this even though I've heard it because it's really funny how people really don't teach AI to be sarcastic sometimes.
Exactly. And Meera has correctly identified the correct answer. It is because we shouldn't end up discouraging anybody. So, by the way, this can take AI into really dangerous territory. So, somebody had once put up a sarcastic post online about how you can make pizza by using glue, gum, Fevicol. And unfortunately, AI took this to be the correct answer. And so, for a little while, you could actually search an LLM for how to make pizza recipes, and they might have included glue or gum as one of the ingredients. So AIs really don't get sarcasm, and that can sometimes be a really dangerous thing. But the reason this is fascinating is because this was a paper actually written way back when, in 1986, to figure out whether people can understand sarcasm or not. And then many years later, AI researchers and AI scientists use the same paper to test if AI is able to understand sarcasm or not. So you might be studying psychology today, you might be studying how the brain works today, and you might end up having a career in AI tomorrow. Because as it turns out, a great challenge while working with AI or with large language models is, should we help them understand what is sarcasm and what is not? And if the answer to this question is yes, then how do we go about teaching AIs what is sarcasm and what is not? But for that, you have to understand sarcasm well yourself. So the next time, say for example, somebody at home asks you, why are you watching Inside Out for the 20th time? You can say, because I'm training to be an AI scientist. And you might actually be speaking the truth. So the point with this particular exercise was to help you guys understand that even the study of psychology is actually related to the study of artificial intelligence. All right, this is actually going to be very easy for you to try and guess if you're able to use the internet. And I'm going to say, you know what, go ahead and use the internet if you like. But I'm going to give you a series of clues over here, and you have to guess what stole from whom. If you choose to use the internet, you will find the answer in a couple of seconds. If you choose to not use the internet, if you choose to not quote unquote cheat, then you'll have fun answering this quiz. All right, all 5 clues are up on your screen. Can you try and figure out who stole what from whom? So Zoom is choosing to show me 4 or 5 different camera feeds, and I can just see Keshav suddenly remembering where this comes from. Any guesses? Who stole what from whom? There are a lot of clues in the words that I've used on this screen. Yes, Dia, comes from design. Yep. Specifically bicycle design. Neuroscience. Nope. I'll wait 30 more seconds. So turns out this is something known as mechanical doping. I'll write that down in the chat window.
Sir,
Yes. Jahaziel, right? Yes.
yes. He was the first cyclist to be caught for mechanical do. He used a hidden motor. He used the like a water bottle has this battery.
Absolutely, yes. She, not he, but yes, 100% correct. This is what is known as mechanical doping, and well done, Jahaziel. The mechanical doping bit over here, it's a fascinating story. Can you, in some way, shape, or fashion, figure out how to use motorized equipment on a bicycle race? Basically, can you turn your bicycle into one with an engine? And the art and science of doing this, obviously, this is related to engineering design, is mechanical doping. And detecting that a bicycle is actually installed with a motor is forensic science. So you have to become Sherlock Holmes to figure out if people are cheating in a bicycle race. And if you're wondering how people can possibly cheat in a bicycle race, you might want to take a look at this video. Sorry.
Okay, here's a turn it on. So I'm gonna have to have somebody pedal it. It's a second gear.
Oops, sorry. I have no clue what is happening.
That's 250 watts. Good for 30 minutes. Second gear.
As Maya quite correctly pointed out, the reason you want to do this is to have the wheels move faster and that too on their own. And the really scary bit is it is actually quite difficult to figure out who is cheating and who is not. If you're going up a slope on a mountain during a race, for example, that's a great time to cheat if you want to be the kind of person who's going to cheat in a bicycle race. I hope none of you ever choose to, but it is possible to do this, and it is really difficult to figure out who is cheating and who is not. So mechanical doping is interesting, and detecting mechanical doping is even more interesting. So as it turns out, there is a bit of an arms race between people who try to figure out how to cheat in a bicycle race and people who try to figure out how other people have cheated in a bicycle race. So one is mechanical doping, which is engineering design used to cheat, and the second is forensic science, whose job it is to try and figure out who might be cheating in a bicycle race. But you can understand now how even bicycle and forensic science are related to each other. And that's what makes something like this so remarkable. And yes, Dia, absolutely. It looks so much like a water bottle, you can't even understand that it's actually a hidden motor. There are different ways you can detect it. So sometimes if you fall off a cycle on which you were trying to cheat, you will see that the wheels continue to rotate even though the cycle has fallen. Sometimes people use what are known as thermal imaging cameras to see if the bicycle is actually hotter than it ought to be, exactly as was just pointed out in the chat window. And Krishna, you wanted to point out something?
No, I just wanted to share, like, they could use this to do stuff like horror movies and stuff, like the bicycles going on its or
Yes, you're right.
they could use
Absolutely.
it to like show how a bicycle is going just on its own without anyone riding it.
I I have to confess, I've never liked watching horror movies, but you're right. If a director wanted to, he could possibly use this in a movie as well. All right. Now, I'm going to ask you to imagine three people. Let's say that their names are Vishnu, Eklavya, and Utpal. Okay. For no particular reason. Let's imagine that they are all three of them are really good friends. And these three friends, once again, the names are Eklavya, Utpal, and Vishnu. What they do is they decide that they are going to watch a movie tonight. Now, Eklavya is a huge fan of Three Idiots. Vishnu thinks that Avengers Endgame is the best movie that has ever been made. And Utpal thinks that both of his friends are, well, obviously nuts. Why? Because the best movie ever made was Bahubali. So we already have a strong opinion in the chat window. As far as Maya is concerned, Vishnu is the only sensible person amongst the three of them. Although Maya, I'm guaranteeing you that there'll be some people who will think that Bahubali is the best choice over here. We'll find out. Perhaps we can run a quick opinion poll about which is the correct movie to watch. And of course, Meera has the best answer possible. Just simply do a movie marathon and watch all three at the same time. But let's imagine that Eklavya's parents and Vishnu's parents and Utpal's parents insist that they must study as soon as possible. So they only get to watch one movie. So obviously now we have the question. If you can only watch one of these movies and each of the three has chosen a different movie, then which movie should you watch? So what the three friends do is they say, all right, what we are going to do is we're going to rank our preferences. Each one of us is going to tell you which is our favorite movie, which is our second favorite movie, and which is the third favorite movie. And then once you have the rankings in front of you, you can help each of these three decide which is the correct movie to watch today evening. So what do their preferences look like? Eklavya likes Three Idiots the most, Avengers second, and Bahubali third. Vishnu likes Avengers the most, then Bahubali, and then Three Idiots. And Utpal likes Bahubali, then Three Idiots, and then Avengers. You have the information right up there in front of you. So please answer this question. Which movie should you watch tonight? Of course, whatever answer you give me, you all obviously have to tell me why. So Meera, I'm sorry, but as the representative of the parents of these three friends, you can only get to watch one movie. And Meera and Bharatram have quite correctly identified that they all get equaled out. I love the term equaled out. I think what Meera means is the fact that these turn out to be cyclical preferences. So Three Idiots is number one over here, but Three Idiots is number three over here and number two over here. Similarly, Bahubali is one, two, and three, and Avengers is also one, two, and three. So unfortunately, none of the three actually has a clear majority. So, in fact, Siddharth very kindly offered to create a poll so that you guys can help Vishnu, Utpal, and Eklavya answer this question. But now let's get back to who stole what from whom. So, in this case, who was a thief and who was the victim?
Maths was probably the victim because like math is basically on patterns. And this
Yep,
is also pattern.
absolutely. So, this is a field of mathematical analysis called graph theory. But who did the stealing? So I think it was Jahazil who answered, and you answered, or was it Dakshit? I'm sorry. But yes, you're quite right. Maths was the victim, but who was the thief?
Um, maybe someone like
Sahana, did you have an answer?
I think it's psychology because in psychology we analyze who likes which, and we also use graphs for identifying which is better for them.
Ashrit got it right. It is economics that did the stealing, but good guess, Sahana. And the reason economics did the stealing is because we have a field of economic analysis called public choice theory, where we try to figure out why people vote the way they do. So as it turns out, if economics wants to answer the question, why will people vote the way they do, then we will have to end up using something that actually comes from mathematics called graph theory. And it is remarkable how one field consistently and always ends up stealing from some other field. Now, here's a truly tragic story. It's a lot of text, and I don't like to read out text that everybody can read, so I won't read it out. But if at any point of time any of you find it difficult to read what is on the screen, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to read it out. So in this case, once you have finished reading whatever is on the slide, Bharatram, excellent guess. Yes, you're right. Aviation. Yeah, they're pilots. I'm truly impressed that you got the pilot bit. Bharatram, could you please tell me how you guessed that they were pilots? I, hopefully he's typing a message out. But yeah, so I'll now tell you the excellent, yes. So the reason I was wondering if that is how you understood because 228 people died. And yeah, absolutely. And yes, if you have heard of this tragedy, then obviously you'll know the answer. Krishna, you also raised your hand.
Yeah, so should I answer it because I know.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I think that aviation is air modeling. It stole from AI because the plane was AI. There was AI in the plane, and in the when the plane was not working, or if there was like a storm or something, then AI was supposed to give it to the pilots, but then the pilots did do it at the time if that was needed.
Well, actually, back then AI wasn't there on the plane. Keshav, did you have an answer?
Sir, I think it is autopilot, if I'm correct, sir. Or I
Yeah, it was autopilot, and
Yeah,
this was
because the pilots are well trained and they were professionally trained, but the problem was because of using autopilot so much, they basically always let the autopilot do the work. And basically, when the storm came, the autopilot did not know what to do, and it gave it to the pilots. And
yeah,
at that time, the pilots kind of forgot how to operate the plane, so it crashed.
absolutely,
So
and it was
that actually happens lots of times. Like there's
yeah.
many other tragedies where the overdependence on flight computers have caused tragedies like this.
Exactly. And perhaps in this case, Bharatram, you might be better qualified to answer whatever is going to come up on the slide because I'm very far from being either an aviation engineer or a forensic scientist. But unfortunately, what happened, Keshav has actually already told you most of the story. What happened was the pilots were simply not used to flying in very adverse weather conditions. And unfortunately, the storm that day was so bad that the autopilot said, I am going to switch off, let the pilots handle it. But the pilots had gotten so used to the autopilot flying the plane that they couldn't figure out how to take control back from the autopilot. So, Mira, no, it wasn't intentional. In fact, the recording from the black box was truly tragic to listen to because there were three pilots in the cockpit that day, and all three tried to figure out how to get the plane back into control, but they were not able to. And there's an important lesson in this for all of us. Sure, we should use as much AI as possible. Sure, we should have machines do as much of the work as possible. But it is important not to lose sight of the fact that being able to do stuff yourself always remains important. Because if ever there comes a time where the machines say, boss, we can't handle this, let the humans take over, we should be ready to handle whatever challenge comes
So
up. Yes, Paratram.
there's also another like tragedy. So
Mhm.
there's Ariane 5 uses spacecraft launched by ESA, I think.
Yes.
So basically, what happened for that is it, they the there was a flaw in the computer science. So the input given was in 64-bit, but the input like
Oh,
processing was 32 bits, so it couldn't like um withstand any crash, leading to the entire aircraft getting.
absolutely. So I haven't heard of this specific instance that you are mentioning, but there are lots of such tragic cases. So there was a truly tragic case in the UK during COVID when people did not realize that an Excel file can only handle 65,536 rows. And so therefore a lot of data was lost out pretty much because people did not understand how Excel compatibility works. But over dependence on machines can be a really tricky and dangerous thing. So in this case, forensics, we wanted to investigate what caused the plane crash. And as it turns out, you could argue that this was AI, as somebody just did, or you could argue that this was aviation design. You could argue that these was all three things at the same time. But you could actually have a case where a neuroscientist, an aviation designer, and a forensic expert had to work together on the same project to try and understand why the plane crashed. And again, the point of all of these stories is to help you guys understand that everything that you study is always connected to everything else. And I really am quite focused on this idea, and I want to make this quite clear to all of you, not just to the cases that we have discussed in this call that we've had together, but generally speaking, never ever be under the impression that something that you're studying is boring. It may be. For me, example, when I was in school, maths used to be a really boring subject. But the way to make maths interesting is to try and figure out how I can link maths to one of my favorite subjects, which used to be languages. So I spent a lot of time in trying to figure out, can I play games involving words using mathematics? And that made me slowly get better at mathematics. Now, some of you might not have a fear of mathematics, some of you might have a fear of languages, but the challenge is, can you infuse in your boring study a little bit of your favorite subject? Once you learn how to do that, learning will always become something that is genuinely interesting. Now, at the end of this call, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this presentation with Siddharth, and hopefully he'll be able to share it with all of you. And the reason I want to do that is there are 3 or 4 ideas or 3 or 4 cases that I did not discuss today because I wanted to spend 10 minutes in chatting with you guys. But having taken a look at the entire presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. This is my email address. That is my Twitter ID. However you would like to reach out, please feel free. And if you have any questions either about the presentation or anything else that you think I can help you out with, I'm always here and happy to help. Now, those of you who attended my previous talks will know this. I insist on people asking me 5 random questions at the end of every talk. This is a golden rule whenever I give a talk. So as a bunch of people who have listened to me right now, what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to ask me 5 completely random questions. The only rule is these questions can have nothing to do with what we spoke about today. Outside of that, whatever you want to ask me, music, history, geography, geology, biology, whatever, feel free to ask. I may not know the answer, but please go ahead and ask the question and we will see what answers we get. All right, Bharatram asks the first excellent random question. What did you eat for breakfast? So I love it when random questions allow me to go off in completely unexpected directions. My answer, Bharatram, is the same thing that I have for breakfast every single day, which is nothing. So I don't have breakfast. I skip breakfast as a meal, and I've done that for the last 6 years now. So I typically have only 2 meals in the day, lunch and dinner. But I'll also tell you, Bharatram, since you've asked the question, I'll also tell you that I happily break the rule if, say, for example, I'm staying at a hotel or if somebody comes home with a particularly tasty breakfast. So it's not a hard and fast rule. If the breakfast is good enough and it's worth the cheat, then I'll happily cheat. Otherwise, typically, I will skip breakfast entirely. There was another excellent question that was asked about. Thank you for the concern. And perhaps, yes, it may be unhealthy. I certainly would not recommend that any of you do this. How many times have you? No, wait, there was. Yes. Why did Hitler lose World War II? Excellent question. And my personal answer to this question, why did Hitler lose World War II, is to say that he should not have invaded Russia. Had World War II started and had the non-aggression pact between Russia and Germany stayed the way it was, it's difficult for me to say what would have happened at the end of World War II, but I find it fairly easy to say this much. World War II certainly would not have finished in 1945. It certainly would have lasted some years more. So his ego, Hitler's ego, I think is what lost him the Second World War. What other questions have I got? So Maya asks an excellent question. How is Atty? For everybody's benefit, Atty is the name of my dog. She's a 2-year-old golden retriever and she's doing just fine. In fact, right now I think she's a little disappointed because it has started to rain over here, which means she will not be able to go out for a walk anytime soon. But apart from that minor tragedy in her life, Maya, Atty is doing just fine.
There's also why is the sky blue?
Oh, why is the sky blue? What a lovely question. I'm tempted to get into the science of it. I'll give you a brief answer over here, and perhaps Siddharth,
Sir,
perhaps
how many?
somebody else. Just 1 second, Navya. The simple 2-word answer to why the sky is blue is because of something known as the Rayleigh effect. I'm saying this from memory, and I'm not a scientist, so I may well be wrong about this, but I'm fairly sure it is something related to how light waves are scattered because of the atmosphere, and that is related to something known as the Rayleigh effect. But I'll defer to the scientist in the room. Siddharth, if I've said something wrong, please go ahead and correct me. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but so long as you're able to quickly answer for all of us, I'll be very grateful.
Yeah, I'm also pulling from memory, but from what I remember of Rayleigh scattering is that the lower wavelengths get scattered.
Correct.
And therefore, what you're seeing, the sky looking blue, is all that scattered light that's up there.
Exactly. But again, I'm quoting from memory, and Siddharth just said that he is as well, so I may well be wrong, but I'm fairly sure that we are in the same ballpark at least.
Yeah.
All right, 2 other questions, Navya and Meera. Yes, Navya.
Sir, how many languages do you know?
Excellent question. How many languages do I know? So my native tongue is Marathi. I of course know Hindi. English I know fairly well. I've spent a long time learning French, and I know enough French now to be able to read it. But never ask a person with my accent to speak in French. You'll probably start a war between India and France. Um, yeah, these are the only languages that I know, unfortunately. You could say that I know a little bit of a computing language or a computer language called Python, but that doesn't count. I'm clutching at straws over here. In terms of languages as we know them, these are the four that I know. Lots of excellent questions. Lovely. Meera, you had a question, and then I'll come back to the chat.
Like, I think that the sky is blue because of like some kind of pigment like existence in the sky. So some kind of pigment or chemical is existing in the sky which somehow makes it blue, or in the atmosphere actually, which makes it seem blue. And also the ocean is blue because it's reflecting the sky.
Yeah. The first part of your answer, I'm not so sure of. I'll have to look it up. The second part, I think, yes, you're right. The oceans look blue because they reflect the sky, which of course
The
means
first,
that otherwise they would have been blue even when the sun set, right?
the first part, I'm also not so sure. That was just my thought.
Right. Shan asks a lovely question. Why do Americans have a different system for everything? Shan, I'll respond with a story, and we'll do one, maybe two more questions, and then we'll hand it over to Siddharth. The story that I have to tell you, Shan, is about how America, this is a story courtesy Stephen Fry, one of my favorite stand-up comedians, writers. Stephen Fry is so many different things. But he's got a lovely story about how America must be the only country in the world where they fill up their car with a liquid and they call it gas. So when you put petrol in an American car, you don't say you're filling it with petrol, you say you're filling it with gas. And as Stephen Fry so memorably put it, must be the only country in the world that fills up a vehicle with a liquid and says I filled up gas in it. But yes, you're right. Americans have a different system for everything, for eating, for the way they measure stuff, uh, different words that they use. Everything is different in America. Absolutely. And as a fan of football, their insistence on calling it soccer is also a great example of why they have different names for everything. Somebody already answered the DNA question. Great. Last random question. It's a lovely random question. Why did you think about wearing a blue shirt today? I don't mean to start another controversy about psychology and neuroscience over here, but this shirt is actually gray, not blue. But if you think it looks blue, then perhaps we can have a quick poll on how many of you think it's blue and how many of you think it's gray. And that can be the famous blue, gold, and white dress challenge all over again. But excellent, lovely set of uh, random questions. I'll end with one random question of my own, which is my favorite random question to have been asked in the year 2024. I'll put it up over here. You don't need to answer it right away, but you can think of the answer. And the question is, why do cockroaches flip over when they die?
Sir, I was thinking of that yesterday, sir.
So like I said, don't answer it right now. But this to me is a great example of what a random question is. One of the students this year asked this question, and we found it a fascinating question to think about. It's something all of us have seen, that cockroaches, when they die, flip over. But why should they flip over? Shan, if I ever meet the student to ask me the question, I will make sure that give them your answer. Shan's answer is for comedic effect. They want to die with flair. Amazing. What a lovely answer to give.
Sir,
Obviously not
what's
the correct
flair?
answer, but 10 on 10 for effort.
Sir,
Flair
what's
is
flair?
die with style. They want to die in an especially memorable way.
Bharatram also had a joke to close the cycle because we started with jokes.
Lovely.
Did you know that packages sent through cars are called shipments and
For
sent
ships,
on
it's
ship
called
is called
cargo.
cargo?
Brilliant, brilliant. All right, I had a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys did as well. Thank you so much. Siddharth, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining in today. It was really great, and you're all members on Gifted World, and so we'll be in touch there. Remember that we have more events coming up. You can see it all on our website. And in fact, next week, just 1 week from now, whoops, sorry, I will just share my screen. We're going to have a really interesting session led by Murli, who all of us know as Garu.
Garu.
My screen sharing is paused. Oh, wait, resume. Hold on, sorry, something funny is happening with my screen share. Yeah, there we go. Can you see? Yeah. So, session on paper structures and soft robotics. Okay. The name might sound intimidating, but Murli is an amazing, amazing mentor who has done a lot of work with Channapatna toys, if any of you know it in Karnataka, traditional toy making out of wood. He also led a session on engineering design through bicycles. So at the same time that Ashish was teaching economics in May, Murli was getting students to fully take apart and fully reassemble and really understand how bicycles work. Okay, so he's going to be having a lot of fun. We'll take ordinary paper and simple materials and make magical moving creations, in his words. So do join in and share it with your friends. It's free as always. So hope to see you next week, the same time, where we can join Murli in having fun with paper structures and soft robotics. Once again, thank you all for coming today. A big thank you to Ashish for giving us a really meandering discussion through all sorts of topics. And I'm
My
sure,
pleasure entirely. Thank you.
yeah. And thank you all for contributing great jokes. Okay.
Yes,
Lots of great
100%.
answers in the chat. Okay. Thank you and have a lovely evening.
Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Yes. Bye.
Bye, Sue.
Bye.
Bye.